So we were discussing like in CS specifically, like what people are thinking. So yeah, so as I was mentioning, like in CS, like people are kind of just exploring MS as an option and seeing like if they want to pursue research more, then the people might be thinking like they will segue into a PhD after trying to do some research in MS and exploring their field more if they're more interested in further doing research. Some people might be like some people like me are more interested in say going into research based jobs, and some people are more interested in say doing their MS for 2 years and then going into any normal software job as such and just treating MS as a segue to a job. So there are different kinds of thinking, and yeah, there's no one single mentality as such. There people are just exploring MS and yeah, exploring what they want to do and using MS as that.
I think Dibyendu, like a really good point that you brought up is that people don't need to do a PhD if like they want certain research jobs in the industry. Like because a lot of people in India have this misconception that if you want this particular job, like which might be true for many disciplines, but like for many disciplines, for many kind of job profiles, a master's is as good as a PhD. And if that is what one's goals uh, have, like they should definitely consider not doing a PhD, because for some reason PhDs have been painted in a very rosy light amongst like undergrads. I don't know like how that happens, but like it's a long commitment that one makes, and if you do not want to go through that commitment, um, like for a job purpose, you can always do an MS and get a good job. Like just make sure you get a really good research profile in your MS, and like you're aware of the job opportunities you can get after that, and probably like you will be in a much better place job wise or like your profile wise in the company after say 5 years of job, um, instead of 5 years of PhD, if like that's what you're aiming for, like climbing up the profile ladder.
Just
Yeah.
to add to what Vinayak you said, uh, even if you're inclined towards research job, masters is as good as PhD. Assuming that you're doing a master's with a thesis, that makes a huge difference. If you're doing thesis, it is as good as your PhD because you will be doing research and you would be having a publication and all of that out. But just doing master's course base will not build your research profile. So I completely agree with Vinayak, and I think I took that route myself. I did research and thesis rather than pursuing PhD and came to industry.
Mhm. Um,
I think we can move
I
on
think
to university selection. Sorry, Saurabh, you were saying something.
Yeah, I wanted to
no.
segue into that, adding to the ROI discussion,
Yeah.
just wrap that up.
Let's do that.
In terms of, so ROI is also in terms of how much tuition are you paying, right? And that's where we come to the university selection. Not all universities have same tuition. There are many universities that offer you similar quality of education, but at much lower tuition. Especially in Texas, I've heard a couple of universities which have like 1/4 or 1/3 of the tuition that say University of Michigan charges. It's really expensive in University of Michigan where I'm studying right now. Tuition for international students is like 20, I guess around $27,000 a semester, which is huge, right? And then there are universities in Texas like Texas A&M or UT Austin, which are like of the tune of around 15 or even lower than that, even for international students. So that's where university selection comes into plays an important role. We can get into that now.
Mhm. I think this one last thing here, right? We should mention about CPT as another form of collecting funds. So basically, you would have opportunity to do internships, maybe part time or full time. But one disclaimer here is that you cannot do that before 9 months, or of your, like, you have to spend 9 months doing your courses, full time being in your university, and after that only you can pursue an internship, part time or full time,
So the
in
9
the
month,
US. So
just to clarify on the
mhm,
9 month rule, it's basically they want you to work inside the university system itself
right.
for the 9 months. Like if you want to work,
Mhm,
so if you can find a job within inside the university system
mhm.
as well, RATA, whatever, that's
Yeah.
allowed. You can't go out on the
Mhm,
market to work because
right.
people do, like, along with their courses. I did that in my last semester because I had already
Mhm,
placed passed through a 9 month rule, but I continued working alongside my coursework with the
mhm,
company. So you can do that, but again, as an international student, people on F1 visas, we need to
mhm.
spend the first 9 months within the university itself. Sort of back to you.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, whatever. So there are, these rules and guidelines that we must know before coming here, so that we can plan accordingly. And CPT, curriculum practical training, is one of those that you would be encountering pretty early in your, masters. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Yeah, I think now we can segue to the university selection, right? Let's get done with this funding.
Yeah, I think I'll throw it back to Nandi. You had that ROI perspective of like living cost expenses. I think we'll start off on that again because that definitely. I mean, I definitely have perspectives, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts first on how much of that comes into the consideration in our university selection process.
Yep. So there are several factors that goes into the selection of universities, like depending on what you'd like to do after the graduation. So if you'd like to continue with your research in the university after graduation, then of course you would like to pick a university which has a reputation in doing good research, which has colleagues and professors which help you and guide you in your research opportunities. Um, and you will compare similar universities which have that. For example, as Vinayak was mentioning, PhDs are funded throughout your program. So if you're comparing between universities for your PhD program, then obviously you look into that which university has a good reputation in research if you want to continue doing research in that university. But if you are not 100% sure about continuing research as a career path afterwards, and you may want to sort of switch to the job market, then what matters is, okay, which universities have shown sort of results that the graduates have gone back to the industry and worked at a certain industry that you might be interested in. Those information will definitely help you from a like identification of, okay, which universities have shown past results in terms of certain career path. For me specifically, the program that I was in was an interdisciplinary program, which was jointly run by different schools under one university. There are several such programs currently in US right now, and of course there are like specific school provided programs like MS in CS or MS in data science, and sometimes the MS in data science is also jointly run by CS and statistics department. So those different programs offer different job prospects, and you can look into the sort of career statistics to sort of make some more idea about what the career path will be after graduation. Keeping this factor particularly the same between universities, you may want to switch over to like the living expenses of that particular city or the university that you're staying in. So for me, I went into the like MS in finance programs, and primarily a lot of MS in finance universities are obviously in New York. There are a couple in Chicago, and like a few more in like throughout the university, throughout the US, but a lot of them are based in New York. But at the same time, the living expense in New York is like 1.5 times or almost twice as a suburb or sort of rural city, I would say, in US. So that also brings in the concept of, okay, how much living expense you're going to incur if you stay in a city like New York. Even if there are like avenues of reducing your cost, even if you're staying in New York, but staying in New Jersey and all that, but that will also like require your commuting and all those expenses. So that's why I chose to study in Pittsburgh, in a like similarly reputed university as I was offered in New York, because of the living expenses. Because Pittsburgh definitely, like staying in Pittsburgh helped me reduce my expenses significantly.
And I think Tushar will share the same aspect of staying in Georgia as opposed to if he did his master's in New York, for example. So these factors do play in. So definitely think about these discussions or these factors beforehand. When it comes to your visa interviews, though, I would recommend not particularly mentioning this particular factor as your reason for choosing that university. The reason for choosing the university was the first reason of what are the career prospects offered by the university and the programs or the courses that you will be offered at that university. Once that has been decided, then you move on to the third factor of your expenses. Of course, if you do not want to join a university which doesn't offer the courses that you would like to do, or doesn't have a good reputation in terms of placing their graduates in the industry successfully, just because it has a less tuition, right? So when it comes to the visa interviews, or like when they're going to ask you why are you picking this particular university for your master's program or a PhD program, the factors that will play in that discussion will be the career prospects, the course program that they offer, the reputation of the university, how helpful the colleagues or the professors and TAs are, which builds into the reputation, and not particularly the expense. Because like from rupees point of view, we might see $90,000 versus $100,000 expense difference being like 7 lakhs or so, around 7 lakh difference. But from a US point of view, it's almost the same for them. So I would recommend not mentioning the expense as the factor for choosing a certain university or visa discussion. But it's definitely should play into like your choice. And as I mentioned, my personal experience was to take Pittsburgh. As Saurav also mentioned, my program was a 1.5-year program. So I managed to work under CPT in an internship over the summer. And that helped me both in my job interviews and helped me sort of pay back my loan earlier and reduce the burden.
So let me ask a question, right, that I've encountered a lot. So there could be universities that are good, right? They have good reputation, but they might not have a good department that you are trying to apply to. But there could be universities who are like maybe tier 2, but their departments are like really good in the masters that you are trying to apply, right? So how do, like, and it's a question to anyone who wants to answer, right? How do you factor that, like the university reputation versus the department that you are trying to apply to in your decision making of university choice?
Yeah, before we get to that, I know people have thoughts here, but if you guys have just joined the stream, thank you for joining this. My previous stream crashed. I think that was because of the amazing back and forth that we were having. The streaming software could not handle it. But please like the stream again. Please spread the word out. We need more people to come into the chat and keep answering or keep asking their questions, and we can keep answering. Now, sorry, back to the question.
I can start by giving my 2 cents here. It really depends on like what kind of program you are in. Like for example, if you are in a PhD program, I feel personally that the department and the professor matters more than the university per se. So in that case, like if you are in a research based program, I would say you should go with the department and the professor, their reputation. And if you are in a course based masters, going with the university's reputation with respect to placements, with respect to how close they are in the job, with respect to the job prospects. For example, Saurabh said that if you are living in California, if you are near that Silicon Valley area, you have a higher chance of getting placed, even if you are in a tier 2 city, a tier 2 college. So in that case, if you're in like a course-based masters, like going with these factors would matter more rather than checking the department and the professor. But I think it's the reverse if you're going for MS-based, thesis-based MS or PhD.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to highlight as for PhD, the reputation of or the ranking of university does not really matter as much, because what matters is how you will be spending 4 or 5 years of your life and what kind of research are you doing. So you really need to have good professors, good equipment, all the necessary infrastructure that should be there, and that can exist. So there are, some tier 2 universities which have really strong research program in one field, right? They have their own islands of excellence, if you will. So it's up to you, that you need to figure out those. Like, for example, in my field, which is batteries, lithium ion batteries, although every major university has some sort of presence in that area, but not all of them are leaders, right? I know so many of tier 2 universities. By tier 2 I mean that who have QS ranking of less than say greater than 50. So even those universities, which are where some professors are there who are publishing as an astonishing rate, and whose research is really, really, really shaping the field right now. So for PhD, the name of university does not matter as much, in my opinion. What matters is what sort of facilities are there, how's the faculty in that particular field where you want to pursue.
I agree with Harsh and Vishwas here. Just one more thing to add on to that is, it also depends a lot on what you're planning to do. So I agree with the master's path as well as PhD, but it also depends on what you are planning to do after your PhD. So if some people are planning to go back to India and take professorship in any of the IITs, then I have seen that from my friends' experience that the university that you did your PhD does matter. So so especially if you're planning to go into academia, the tag or like the weight of your university, it does matter. But again, if you're planning to go into industry, then what Vishwas and Harsh said, it is like what matters is your research.
I'll quickly share my 2 cents on, looking at this from a job perspective, and I may have a different point of view from what Harsh had mentioned previously. I got like 2 sets of advice from one of my professors who was predominantly guiding me throughout the entire process back in IIT Bombay. One, if you're confused about universities, just pick the one that will cost you the least, because as simple as ROI point of view, because he said it wouldn't really matter that much. But the other thing which I felt was more important was, think of US or the employability in US, or how that really happens. Obviously that depends from streams to stream. I was getting into more of the construction management, real estate perspective. So it is a lot more localized, right? If you just Google US 5 regions, it'll show you that the US is pretty much divided into 5 major parts: the Northeast, then the South, Midwest, and West. So my professor told me to look into the universities which are the best within that cluster. Obviously it can depend, as I said, stream to stream. If it's I think things are a lot more fluid on the tech front. So if you have a tech job, it's not like people from CMU don't get admitted on, like, don't get into Google or Facebook because they're too far off. That doesn't really happen. But if your program is a lot more localized, or the exit options are a lot more localized, because companies think of how easily they can get talent. So if they know, if they are set up in Atlanta and Georgia Tech is based in Atlanta, I have a lot closer connection, I have a lot more exposure to getting into those jobs as compared to if I was in Pittsburgh, for example. And that was a decision-making process, right? Georgia Tech, for me, in at least my field, was by far the best university in the entire Southeast, in the entire South region, in fact, covering Texas as well, even if it wasn't the least expensive. So if you want to think in that term as well, I just wanted to share that layer of thought. But yeah, if you're totally confused about 2 universities, that's what people told me, just go to Texas A&M. That was probably the cheapest one amongst the lot. One quick point I would want to make, I think Vishwas was already answering that question in chat. Guys, we cannot be eligible for in-state tuitions, because that in-state basically means you reside, or your family resides in that particular state. Not only we don't reside in that state, we don't reside in that country. So we are absolutely always getting out of state, unless you get some sort of a funding and your tuition gets waived off or slashed to. I've heard of some universities, instead of completely waiving it off, they basically charge you on an in-state basis rather than the out-of-state, because typically the conversion ratio is, I think, 2x or 3x out-of-state to in-state.
Like, just to basically play the devil's advocate in the PhD program and prestige discussion. So like this has been a dividing topic in general in academia since long, because nobody can deny that like there are best professors in many fields which like who do not belong to any of the so-called top schools, um, who might have been in a top school but for any reason did not want to be in a top school, or weren't in a top school and they have figured out that it doesn't even matter for their research whether they are in that top school or not. From a student's perspective, if you are really sure what you want to do, then university wouldn't matter at all, in my opinion. But if like you are, as a PhD student, like you are very flexible and like you want to say explore multiple labs and then decide, or like you have like a few fields in mind but like you just want to do research, then I think going to a department rather than university, I would say like going to a department where there are many people doing things that you're interested in would be like the best thing to do. Because of the endowment funds that they have, like Harvard has billions and billions of dollars in endowment, and like there are many funding opportunities that arise from there. So like just by the virtue of that, sometimes it becomes helpful um, for them to basically have a department with many professors who are good and like will give you much more variety in what you can do as a PhD student. But again, like for example, if you're interested in say making world's best hearing aids, like Iowa State University does it much better than MIT, like if you want to work on like assisted hearing. So, and if you're hell-bent on doing it, like that's the place you should go. If you're hell-bent on basically working on some specific aspect of acoustics, I would say Penn State is much better than MIT or Stanford or any other place, because they have a department of acoustics. But then if you're not sure whether you want to do controls or acoustics or thermodynamics, and like you are good in all these things and you want to figure out as you go, I would say MIT will give you like a much better choice, because in each of these fields they would have like, if not the top, one of the top professors for a wide variety of fields.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, to summarize, I mean, all the discussion that we had here, good universities or top universities, by the virtue of being top universities, have more resources, more funding, and by that logic, they have, you know, more faculty, more qualified faculty, more experienced faculty, and with that, you will have overall a better chance if you are not sure which field you want to, or which particular topic you want to work on. So that's where choosing a good school helps you out through and through. I mean, that's a general feel good factor to have, right? But if you are really sure what you want to do, then going by professors, not as much by the ranking of universities, makes sense. That would make much more sense than just choosing universities on the basis of their ranking.
Okay, I mean, yeah, all great points and perspectives, both from PhD and masters, or just like job or research perspective. So basically, I now have my profile ready. I have the university options ready. Obviously, I mean, you can look at QS rankings, or you can reach out to different people in the programs, or network with either PhDs who are in the program to get to know the specifics of how that program functions or the team structure is. I have sort of like everything ready. I apply, I get into one of those. Congratulations. Now, what are the next steps? Why, or like, what should I be now focusing on once I am in the US? I am pursuing my master's / PhD / whatever program, thesis track, course track, whatever. We'll delineate between the groups. but what should be, the initial set of, or what do I need to know, from our perspective? Because the answer I'm trying to get to is, what should I have known at the beginning of my course that would have helped me a whole lot now that we are in this position? So we'll start more so from the PhD point of view, and I think Vishwas, Vinayak, Shreyas, anybody's question.
Sure, I can start the discussion. So for me, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do in my PhD, why I'm getting into PhD. So I can't speak, from the point of view if I'm just generally exploring, because I had a very specific vision of where I want to reach at the end of my PhD. And so starting, right from the beginning, I started working towards that. I did not have a lot of background in computational material science. Essentially, that's what I do right now. So I had to undertake a lot of mathematics courses, other things, coding, and a lot of other stuff that I had to learn on my own. And being in a university environment is really good for learning, because you have all the resources that you need in terms of courses, library, professors whom you can reach out to, and your peers, right? That's what I was doing. I was not really in the mood of exploring the university, exploring other things at this time. So can't really say what did I miss on by not doing that. I would rather have someone else, share that experience if someone has that. But for me, I was really focused on getting few things done, and I think I did them well. So that's what my grad school is for me.
Vinayak?
So what's the question exactly? Sorry.
So what would you have told the person who was just starting in your PhD program, that would have helped that person, a lot better than usually people do, or based upon your own experiences, the lessons that you've learned, that you would want to share to your younger self?
Well, like, I might be biased because of my experiences, but I think one of the main things that, like, a first year or a person who just got into a PhD program should consider, they should first reconsider why they want to do a PhD. Like, after coming to the US, after doing some research, because, like, let's face it, people might agree, people might not. If you're going into a PhD program just after undergrad or just after your dual degree program, you literally have no idea what you have signed up for. You have just signed up for that probably because your seniors who had like similar profiles did it. You were really good at academics, and that's what people really good at academics do. Um, so, like, I've seen the best of the best failing as researchers because of, like, their lack of interest or the circumstances that they end up into because of, like, a bad lab situation, or like, many factors. So first of all, like, we should, as a new PhD student, one should just leave everything behind that they have done already. Like, they might think, okay, I'm a like 10 pointer, why would I have any issues with a PhD? Like, everyone has been doing it with my academic background and things like that. Like, all of that does not matter at all. Please reconsider what you want to do in the future and how a PhD would add to it, and, like, why you want to do that. Like, because I have seen at least 5 or 6 of my friends leaving the PhD programs with masters after 2 years because they have realized, well, like, I just didn't know why I wanted to do a PhD, and actually it didn't make sense for them. Like, it literally didn't. Because, for example, you want, like, a particular job in the industry, like, get a master's, apply for that job. If you get the job, go and do that job. Like, why do you want 3 or 4 more years in a below average pay job of a research assistant? uh, like, it just doesn't add up. Like, until and unless you want to do research, that's what you want to learn how to, like, uh, take up a very big project like a 5-year long project, a 3-year, 4-year long project, and break it into like smaller parts, and like you want to learn how to approach bigger research goals as smaller research goals. Like until unless you're interested in these things and you're ready for the challenges that you might have now figured out like what they are, like after a year into the program or something, then make sure you gear your PhD accordingly. Because now I have met some people who are in the last year of their PhDs, have no idea what they want to do, because now they've figured out academia is not the rosy place they thought of it to be. So like they want to go to industry, but they did not get any industrial internships. They did not get like the skills they gathered during their PhD weren't important for the industry. So like now they're just like really, really tensed about their future, even after being at, say, like a so-called good school like MIT, like having a perfect GPA at MIT, like even having papers in Nature. But they said, I don't want to do a postdoc. I don't want to be a professor. Now what do I do? Like this is a question they should have probably asked themselves earlier, because sometimes it's just too late.
I think that's such a this is such a unique advice that people don't really give, and people still keep on living with the rosy picture. But guys, in reality, this is how you should be thinking. So Vinayak, I mean, appreciate your insight.
It's just not PhD, right? It's about
It's everything, to be honest.
any place you are in, right? You need to ask that.
But from an
Go ahead.
employability perspective, or somebody who is aspiring to get into a job, I'll definitely add my insight. You need to start networking, I'd say, right from get-go, because master's programs are what, a year and a half, 2 years, and they just just go out in a flash, because there's so much coursework to do, there's so many activities, you always are catching up to the things that are happening around you. You would never even know when the things sort of just end abruptly, and then you have nothing left in your hand. Even more so for an international student, because you have limited options, a lot, smaller window to get breakthrough. And also we spend the first few weeks, months just adjusting to the environment, right? It's a big culture shock, it's a big change of environment, so much, like everything from language, food, people, community, everything is just so much different. It takes a toll on everyone for any whatever the course or whatever program, whatever location you are in within the country. But from, again, if your perspective is to get a job, I'd say network the hell as you can, because right from get-go, if you have a pretty solid network base, you get a lot better perspective around what really happens in the industry. I'll share this personal anecdote. Knowing that I wanted to eventually get a job, I mean, obviously, I spent 1 semester doing research and I hated it. So I had my confirmations around, okay, I need to really focus on getting employed. In India, we have placement cells, placement committees, like our infrastructure of getting a job in India. And again, I'm speaking from a very privileged position, being from IIT Bombay, but I know at least in some respect, this happens across universities, that we have companies coming to us, and then there's a very set process of like day one, you would have like 10, 20, 30 companies in front of you. Obviously, that depends on your profile if you get selected or not, but at least you have the opportunity where companies are just, coming to you and just mass recruiters of Kamasiha represent. But it's not, it's totally the opposite situation here. I mean, yes, we do have career fairs, but the perspective of career fairs is that you need to make yourself or market yourself or sell yourself in front of either the recruiters of the company or the actual like professionals who you may be working with. So right from like the get-go, you need to keep on building those relationships. For example, I met the same person in 3 different career fairs, and just by the mere fact that I was constantly networking, following up, talking to him on LinkedIn, speaking with him again, constant meetups that I would have with that particular person. He had a very good profile in his head around, okay, this is what he wants and this is what he wants to do. Then he started taking me seriously around, okay, let's talk, and I can see you working alongside me within a company, so I may as well put you in the process to get hired. That's how like the perspective is with which people lead here. I spent, I don't know, numerous sessions or met tons of people over lunch, over coffee, just had like 30-minute quick conversations over phone call, just introducing and selling myself. You need to learn how to sell yourself in like that 30-second, 1 minute, 3-minute pitch of, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I want to do, this is how I approach, my background, whatever. But you really need to start building your network, and even more so for, again, field specific, right? For a field like where I wanted to break into was real estate investments. It's a people's game. It's completely driven by people and not really so much about around the process, or like, there's no application process. You need to know the people to get hired. So you need to be focused more on becoming a real salesperson. I think Vishwas mentioned that right at the beginning, for an application process as well, but it continues even when you come to the US. So it's a very long-winded way of saying just network. Guys, use LinkedIn to the max. There's so much you can achieve just by speaking to people. You learn about the lingo, you learn about the culture, you learn about the job prospects just by networking.
So yeah, let's just highlight, right, why it is very, very important to network from the get-go. For people who come in for a master's, right, 1 year masters, or for the PhDs who are about to graduate, after you are done with your college, you only have like 3 months, right, to get a job. If you don't get a job, you're out. You can't stay here, right? And that is where all the nervousness and the life hits you, because if that is approaching, like, and it's if you're about to graduate in a month or two, it's already a very high time that you should actually start doing something about it, because I have seen
just to
people who are
explain
already
that context, sort of, I don't know if people are very well aware about the F1 visa system. So just to explain that,
yeah
in an F1 visa, you are basically a student. So the university basically, quote unquote, is sort of sponsoring you that, hey, this is a student, come to the US and you can study under our system. But as soon as you graduate, you are like a free person, but free in the context of, if you don't find something within that 90-day, 3 months as sort of set period, you're out. You're nobody. If you couldn't find someone to sponsor you going forward, either through I think OPT is the only sort of mechanism, right? The EAD card that we receive, which is employment authorization document card that we receive, that becomes super crucial, because that attests that you are here in this country because you're working for this particular employer. If you don't have that, and the time limit is 90 days, the clock is ticking. So it becomes really crucial.
And that's the difference, right? Looking for a job in India, like, you have time, right? You can just sit and you can apply as much as you want and you can take your time, but you don't have time here. So, and 1 year, as you mentioned, right, 1 year masters, 1.5 year masters, time just passes by. So networking and just looking it in a very pragmatic way is very, very important as early as possible.
I think in a 1 year masters, like, you start looking for the job from like day one. Like, you start with,
you should.
yeah, at least you should, right? Because I guess
Not enough time.
yeah, exactly. Because they don't even have time to do an internship through which, like, they can get a job offer later, which, like, a lot of people try to go through. Like, because I think in the US, like, if you secure an internship, like, at a company which usually hires people as well, like, it's a good way to get jobs, right?
Yeah, and I think there are certain programs now, some data science programs and maybe some MBA programs that have internships as a part of the program, right? So maybe that is another option that is coming up now, and you should look into that.
Yeah, I mean, internships are important, obviously, because a lot of people just secure their full-time, convert that into their full-time opportunity. So that becomes a very soft landing for most of the folks. But Divyendu, Andy, any thoughts, opinions on this?
Yeah, I definitely agree with all the comments being made, and very agree with Vinayak that for a 1 year program, you should join the university with the resume for your job. So and you should start supplying that resume the day you enter into US. And that's I made that mistake. I did not do that, although my program was not 1 year, so it wasn't that hurtful. But I will definitely tell myself that okay, the moment you enter into US, go log into your LinkedIn, find out all the applications, start applying right that point onwards. Some people would think, okay, let me just take a couple of courses, let me build my resume a little more, that I have done these courses and things like that. I mean, it's already too late if it's for a 1 year program. You can at max wait for 6 months for your first 6 semester courses, but no more than that. So I made that mistake. So and as Saurav had pointed, during the phase of like after my summer internship, it was very anxious kind of a situation where I thought that it was too late. So what we have to do is to like go over to LinkedIn. There are a lot of like depending on the program or the industry you want to join, there are a lot of recruitment consultants, also known as headhunters, who are sort of searching for talent, and they are aware of the new openings in a company. They get to know the very first time a new opening becomes available, even before the company makes it public in their website or LinkedIn job dashboard. The consultants are aware that okay, there is an opening for a certain position in a certain company, and if they have the talent, and they usually have this talent pool of candidates which they sort of represent, um, getting good sort of relations with those people will definitely help you out. I ended up having like 5 or 6 like point of contact with these consultants after almost a year of entering into US, and that was definitely too late to begin with. I was lucky at the end, but I would definitely not recommend anyone to be in such a situation. So get in touch with them as soon as you can via LinkedIn. You will see like there are like different companies. I can recommend the ones for finance, but they have all these like referrals. They will discuss with you as if they are trying to recruit you. You will discuss your accomplishment, your course programs, and what are the kind of roles you would like to work in. And as new positions become available, they will share those information with you, and you can sort of apply via them, and you'll definitely see that that application via them is much ahead of the applications that you will apply via job dashboard or LinkedIn dashboard. So yeah, so I definitely agree with Vinayak and Saurav that uh, you have to, the moment you get in, you should start thinking about what are the job applications if you want to get into that area, of course, because if you want to do continue on the research, then there's a different like different ball game altogether. And Vinayak and Vishwas can help you like recommend in those lines what you should do the day one you join. But from a master's and from the career building and job perspective, I think the sooner you start, the better it is.
I think that was an excellent insight on the headhunter point of basically entering into the market, because yeah, you're right. It's a lot more sort of efficient and direct, because they exactly know what the companies are looking for, because either they're directly working with them or at least in some way or the other understand the job market a lot better than a fresher like us would know. And yeah, for me, the applications that I submit, it didn't, like, none of them actually went through. The algorithm will always sort of, I don't know why, just never select me. But in that same company, if I connected with someone on LinkedIn, I was already having conversations with them. So I still push as much as I can to go down the route of either headhunters or direct connecting with the employees, or potentially like VPs of the world, of your companies. But I don't know, curious to know, Dibyendu, if you have a slightly different perspective, more so from a tech or CS related companies point of view, where I'm assuming a lot of the job application process is the predominant factor in recruitment.
Yeah. So especially in my case, so since I was mainly looking for research jobs, so it was kind of a mixture of what all the people said here. So I was focusing yes on networking, but also yes on research. So I had to build up my research profile and also look for jobs which are in those areas that I'm working on, and kind of a research based job. So I was more focusing on taking up research projects with different professors at Georgia Tech. I also worked on a research project during my summer intern. So again, building up on my research profile, and then finally doing a lot of networking, hunting down people on LinkedIn, talking to different engineers and recruiters in different companies, and figuring out what they are trying to do, like if it's actually suiting my profile and will they be interested. So it's kind of a merger of all these different things that different people have said. So yeah, that's kind of it. And networking definitely helps. Since here most of the people in career fair just say that apply online. Yes, you need to apply online, but definitely try to contact people, contact recruiters, contact maybe hiring managers. If you can figure out who the hiring managers are, which you can in certain situations, like you can go to different websites which do have postings and all that. So do try to explore and figure out like where these postings are happening. Try to contact these people, talk to them, and a lot of recruiters will be really happy to talk to, like have a like 5-10 minute conversation and to figure out what your interests are. Are you kind of a fit? Because recruiters won't know exactly if you are a fit, but they will at least know if if the buzzwords are matching or not, like if what you have done is kind of also mentioned in the job profile. So they will be able to figure out some of these things, and then once they take you in, and then you can start with the interview process, have some initial conversations, and go from there. So yeah.
Not sure if that is obvious. Why we are asking to network with people is to get referrals, because when you get referrals, they internally apply for you. They internally pass on your resume, which gets the limelight. So that's why like getting referrals is important. That's why we are asking to network. If that wasn't obvious, go ahead, Vishwas.
One thing I would like to highlight is that schools, universities, they have a lot of resources when it comes to recruiting. So do also take advantage of that. For example, Career Center at University of Michigan, they have direct access to all the HRs in the major companies out there, right? So if you reach out to them, they can do the initial screening, and then they can get you in touch with like HR in your field, or in the companies in your field that you are interested in getting hired for, right? So that's additional resource that you have available. It depends from university to university. It exists in my university, so if it does exist in your university, do take advantage of that.
Yep, appreciate the insight. Yeah, one quick point on top of what Divyendu mentioned. I think the principle is to get noticed. Obviously, you're applying online and you're going through that process, but there are hundreds others who are doing the same thing. So you just basically need to strategize how to get noticed on top of everything you're already doing. So yeah, find ways to do that. Either speak to them, network, connect on LinkedIn, and get referrals, as Saurabh said. So you'll be much ahead in the line with all of those keeping in mind. I had a few for the chat.
I would like to add one
Please,
point
go
to
ahead.
that. From a core perspective, it's better to directly contact the engineers and the project managers rather than working with the HR, because they just don't know what they're talking about. They are just given the buzzwords. They're just given some things to check on the checkpoints on the resume, but they don't know the actual things like about the engineering perspective. So it's better to contact the engineer, contact the project managers on LinkedIn, and then through them get the referral as Saurabh was talking about, and go forward for the job application.
Hopefully your HR is not looking at this, but yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, if there are any HR people in the chat, please F in the chat.
Yeah. No, I have a slightly different opinion than that, because the way I have seen these things working is, of course, HR does not know about the technical stuff, but they have the, if a vacancy comes in any of the teams in the company, they go through HR. So the team would tell that, hey, we need such a such person with such a such profile. If you have, like if you find someone, refer them to us. So HR is just that intermediate link between you and the team, right? HR will not do the hiring. He or she will just pass on your information. If through the initial screening it seems as if you can meet the team's requirement, then they'll pass on the information, and all the interviewing, all the other things would happen with the team, not with the HR. So a slight nuance there. I mean, just don't be dependent on HR, of course, but things would go through HR in most of the companies. So be cognizant of that fact that even if you are reaching out to some project manager or some engineer in that company, they will reroute you through the HR, because that's how things work.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Yeah, agreed.
So people, the chat, Janta, we'll be wrapping up in a few minutes. So if you still have questions left, please feel free to put them in the chat or on the WhatsApp group. All of the links are in the description. I'll quickly there are some field specific questions, so I'll quickly throw them onto the panel one by one. Vinayak, question for you: is DSP a good career path?
See, like from a research point of view, for digital signal processing, I would say it's more or less dead. Like just DSP, like core DSP without any application, or like without the inclusion of, say, machine learning or like inference models that use DSP. So like if someone really likes DSP, they in all likelihood they would need skills in some related fields as well to augment their DSP profile. And like, see, I like signal processing a lot, so like I am biased in that respect, but there are definitely places where engineers with good background in DSP are needed. But I think now in all those places, some background in machine learning or like data handling is needed, like with DSP to like complete the package that that job profile or even a research profile would want. Because I don't know of a single professor right now at MIT who is working on like core DSP, trying to like build DSP principles. And even in industry, like all the DSP positions that I have come across have been like uh, DSP plus machine learning or DSP plus some other field.
Yeah, fair point. Guys, please don't ask Vinayak about his grade in DSP course at IIT. Chakra had this question around understanding the difference between, there are different variants, so it becomes a little confusing. Difference between masters in management in business analytics, some sort of like in business analytics focused management program, MSc in like data analytics, data science, big data. Do people have on the panel some insight around how these are different, or at least the positioning of these?
I think one difference for sure I feel in MSc in MBA, right, is basically the technical part. So if you are doing your master's in data science, for example, you are going to learn a lot about statistics, about how to code stuff, programming in general, right? But if you are doing your master's, let's say, or sorry, I mean master's in management or MBA, right? Then I think you would learn more about how to be the person to overlook the whole data science pipeline, how to navigate the business, deal with the life process, the whole process of your data science pipeline. So I think it's just the difference in what you would want to pursue. If you want to be a product manager, maybe getting a master's might benefit you more. But if you want to get into core data science, right, build models, maybe getting a master's in data science would be the go-to there. You might actually do a master's in data science, and then down the line you could pursue an MBA, right, or some management oriented program, which would actually build your case stronger. So yeah, that's what I think about.
Yeah, I think the follow-up question is basically the curriculum looks all the same. I mean, Chakra, I agree. And as Saurabh said, it's more about the depth on a particular segment, how much they, I mean, they will cover all aspects in regardless of whatever the context of, I mean, it's the same, I'd say, genre of the field. But yeah, they, in a business analytics versus in a data science, it's the technical aspect that might differ. Vishwas, you have something?
Yeah, essentially, I mean, universities have similar programs at the end of the day. It's just what they are focusing it a bit more on, as Saurabh and Tushar just mentioned. It's up to you, to decide. For such programs, it's always best to talk to someone who has gone through this. If you are not finding them on LinkedIn, one good thing, I mean, in America, one good thing is that you can be really open and brash about, hey, I'm gonna pay you this much amount of money for this program. What am I getting in return? There is no harm in asking that. So you can ask the department if you can, they can put you in touch with their alumni. If you are not finding anyone on LinkedIn who has, done the same program, they can put you in touch and you can talk to these people that what's so unique about this program, what you'll be getting at the end of the day from all these programs. Even though they sound similar, their curriculum is similar, they can be similar in terms of then if the curriculum is exactly similar, then you can circle back to all our discussion about the cost, about location, job opportunities around that area. All those things would become more important than the program itself.
And I think there's like just one more point. Please check whether your program is like characterized as STEM or not. So,
that's a good
so
point.
that you can get the STEM extension, like the OPT STEM extension. So like, because I know that business analytics, at least here at MIT Sloan, is STEM, like even the 1-year program. So like that's good. I guess data analytics, like since it's an MSc program in most of the places, like MS program, so it would be STEM, but it would be a good thing to confirm before enrolling. Although like I know people would, but like sometimes when you're applying, you don't know the importance of the program being STEM for those extra 2 years.
That's true. Good point.
I'll take a second to basically explain what is like STEM and non-STEM and why does it even matter. For STEM related courses, which is science, technology, engineering, and math courses, if the program is designated as STEM, once, let's say, you graduate, there's something known as OPT, which is basically the duration for which you can work without having secured sort of like a more concrete visa like an H-1B. So for STEM programs, or let's say for non-STEM programs, you only get 12 months of that duration, which is within that 12 months, you would only get like one shot of an application for an H-1B visa, because H-1B visa gets picked up by a lottery system, which happens in April. So there's going to be only like one April that comes into that 12-month duration. So you have one shot. If you get picked up, that's great. If you're not picked up, sorry. For a STEM program, you get a 24-month extension on top of that 12-month OPT. So essentially you have 36 months, 3 years, 3 chances to get an H-1B visa. If you don't get picked up on the first one, you have second or the third. So obviously your probability to eventually get picked up within the 3-year frame is a lot higher versus a non-STEM program. Now, I think Shreyas is no longer in the panel, but I know a lot of MBA programs, and I've discussed this with him as well, are now also converting into STEM. I don't know if Dave, if you have some sort of a context around that, but they are trying to accumulate a little bit of those, engineering statistics or those type of courses, so that their MBA program itself becomes STEM. Dave?
That is correct. Yeah, I agree with Vinayak that we should definitely confirm. MBA programs, definitely the top 10 or 15 programs are already considered under STEM, for example, Chicago Booth, MIT and all. But then there are some other programs, other MBA programs, for example, UIC, University of Illinois, Chicago, that the business school there, the MBA program under that university is also STEM. But at the same time, there are other universities, for example, Loyola University or DePaul University in Chicago. Although the MBA might be STEM because they see a lot of influx of students and the university takes the sort of effort to bring in STEM courses and take the permission from the USCIS, which is the US authority to provide the confirmation that whether the degree is STEM or not. But some of the other programs like business analytics or they might still sound that MS, like MS in marketing analytics. You still have programs in science technology, but the program may not be a STEM certified program because the in university did not take the effort to get it certified. So they might put it in FAQ, they may not. It's definitely the first thing to do to confirm. And I agree with Tushar that 3 year of work experience reduces the load from the concerns of will I be able to pay back 100% of my loan before I leave the country, if I have to or if I want to. At the same time, if I want to extend and stay for more period of time, will I have the higher chances of getting selected in the H1B lottery? For example, I got selected in my second chance. I did not get selected in my first chance. That makes a huge difference to your sort of morale and confidence of like coming over to US. So the first thing you should do is confirm by asking them questions if they have not explicitly mentioned whether the program is STEM or not, to confirm whether the program is STEM. Majority of the MBA programs, the top 20-25 are certified MBA because they see influx of 500 or 600 students, more than 50% of which are international applicants. For them, it makes sense to sort of take the effort and do it. But for some of the mid-tier universities, it may not be the case. So, yeah.
Yep, great insight there, Nandi. One quick question in the chat: how much role does research publications play in electrical engineering MS programs in top US universities? Ashwin, we kind of already answered that question. If you go back to the other stream on my channel, you'll definitely find answers there. Okay, moving on to the last segment, and we'll wrap up after this. We've been going on for 3 hours. It's a marathon stream now. Do people already have context around what's like the long term? Do you know you're going back to India? Do you have some sort of a certainty around that decision making process? Because people have already been asking this question even before considering to apply. So I mean, I already know the answers to these questions, but I wanted to sort of you guys at least voice your opinions on how do you think that through, or at least how do I navigate those opinions or those thoughts that I'm getting even before considering to apply. We'll start with Harsh Patel.
Pre-COVID, I had some thoughts. I had some near future plans of returning back to India, but because of COVID, I'm not sure now, like what the future situation looks like for me. So I can tell for sure that I am here until my professional engineering lessons. It's a PE lessons, which is a very coveted lessons in our field, and it is given after clearing an exam and having 4 years of experience after you graduate with a degree. So with the American college degree, MS. So I have completed my 2 years. I have 2 years more for that. So for now, I'm thinking after 2 years, I will think about how I want to proceed in life further.
Okay, Vishwas, I think you had something to add.
Yeah. So it's a really personal decision, and really personal opinion. There is no right or wrong here. That going back to India is the right thing to do, or staying here is the right thing to do. So I would just share my thought process when it comes to choosing what I want to do going forward. My long-term plan is that after finishing my PhD, I do want to go back home, and I have my set of reasons. But before that, I want to share my all the parameters that I account for when taking this decision. One, the biggest thing is about the visa uncertainties that exist. After graduating, even if you are on H1B, there's limit getting extension. Traveling on H1B is really restrictive. Going back to India, like when you want to do that, how you want to do that, it's really restrictive. You have, if you are out of country for a certain amount of time, like out of US for a certain amount of time, your H1B can lapse. That's So those sort of constraints do exist. Third thing, living on visa is always stressful. Looking at, from the point of view that you have that gnawing feeling, even though that does not happen with most of the, good university grad, if you are in good jobs or other thing, but there is always that uncertainty of getting thrown out of the country, frankly speaking. And that happened to a lot of people during COVID times when they lost their jobs, although it's a once in a century sort of, thing, but it's happening. We have seen that happening, that people in their mid 30s, they have 2 kids, their wife, like their entire family here, but now they don't have a job and they have to leave the country. So all those things, they somehow make you feel, a second class citizen, if you will, that you don't have the same amount of rights, you don't have the same sort of security or other things here. So I personally don't want to live in that sort of uncertainty ever. And then the time under when Trump administration was there, that was not really a good time for you to be an immigrant working here, even though everything about your immigration is legal. There were certain aspects, especially in certain parts of the country, where it was not really conducive for you to live. Not saying it's all over the US, no, just at certain places. And luckily, like most of the universities, good universities are, those things don't really occur. But still, those things are just to be mindful of when you are living in a foreign country. So those were the factors. And then looking back at my connections back home, I have my entire family there. Our family business is there. Like most of my friends are there. My entire sort of life is there. I have just taken a short break from that life to pursue some higher studies here, right? So given all these things and the way I see my future to be in India, that's what I am deciding for. Of course, if I live here, keep pursuing what I'm doing right now, financially I might be better off, but emotionally, mentally, I may not be. So those were the things that I always think about. Although this decision is always in the making, it's never finalized until you go back home and permanently settle there, right? It's never finalized in that way. But those are always the thing that I think about when I start thinking about my future.
No, yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing your perspective and hashing those points out, because you're right, this is extremely personal and also dynamic. As Harsh also said, things happen, they keep on changing. So your perspective will keep on adding as and when, new events occur. Even if this was a black swan event, it still happened. And this will also, change. You don't know, you can't predict the future, right? While I was coming here, again, another, from a personal anecdote point of view, I was confused. I'm still confused. It's not like we all already know what we want to do. This is a very difficult type of a, I mean, it's not binary. It always keeps on juggling through different parameters that you have to keep on assessing and understanding. It's the lines are very blurry in this situation. Agreed with Vishwas. I mean, my entire family, tons of my friends and everything is just set up there, and I'm the only lone survivor here. So it becomes very difficult to automatically, or at least, I mean, I that is a very major point in my decision making process. But on the other hand, you have pros and cons. I mean, living in this country, or just the environment and career opportunities and all of that stuff, that was the reason I moved here in the first place. So yeah, it's something, again, a lot of things are beyond your control in this situation. You need to just take a little bit of a leap of faith and go ahead and apply if you want to. And if you don't want to, and if you're having too many, then don't, because again, it's not the entire rosy picture. Vinayak, I think, gave a tremendous answer on that perspective. And even on a job point of view, which Vishwas touched, H1B, you can't get employed on any, I mean, there are restrictions on H1B. You can only get employed within like the field, or at least closely related to your master's program was in. So you can't just, willy-nilly go out there to any company and talk about, hey, I want to work here. It's very difficult to change streams. You have to do a program again. There's only one OPT you get per degree, right, Saurabh, if I'm not wrong on that. So there are many restrictions that play along when it comes to living and working here. And the path towards a green card, especially for us Indians, it's I don't know what 15 years. I don't even know what the cycle on that is today. So it's a little
I
too
guess
further
it's
down
more
the
than
road.
that. The wait
Yeah.
time for green card is
Yeah,
it's much longer.
yeah, it's too long right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it really worth the effort and the time that you would want to spend here? I don't know. I mean, this is a question that you have to constantly keep on asking yourself. Dave?
Yeah, I'd like to add some like comments on that. I agree that it's a decision which is very personal to the people and depends on the factors that an individual faces and something not generalizable. Like Vishwas very lightly pointed out some of the parameters that okay, there is a concern around visa restrictions, and Tushar also added on that, and I agree. And the thing is, you may not want to live with that, like switching from visa to visa, changing from statuses, and keeping those things in mind forever in your entire life. You may not want to do that. You may want to do that for your like early parts of your career when you're building up a career, creating a sort of wealth for yourself, and then you want to sort of stabilize at one point where you don't need to worry about every single trip you make, that okay, is it, do I have my visa stamped out properly and all that, would I be in trouble while coming back. You may not want to worry about that all the time, or when you have a family staying in US. So that's the point where you might think, okay, let me go back because I don't want to keep this bothering annoying thing in my head all the time. I took the effort of working through it for F1 visa, CPT, OPT, and STEM, OPT, and all these like abbreviations that we have listed on. But at one point, you may not want to keep up with that anymore. And that's the tipping point when people feel, okay, let me just go back and take a chill pill. But that chill pill depends on the things that you want to do back in India. For example, certain industries which were not there 20 years ago have developed very well in India right now. And for example, data science or the financial engineering applications of like statistics and all in trading and financial markets. The financial markets in India itself 20 years ago was very naive, I would say, but recently with a lot of brokerage firms and the market have established very significantly, and a lot of international players are coming in into the market. So there are opportunities being available in India, like multinational companies opening up branches in India because they see a lot of talent over there, the huge market which is present over there, which wasn't the case 20 years ago. And that's why you may have seen a lot of like masters or PhD students who came to US 20 years ago. They decided to stay in US because for them, going back to India had almost zero opportunities to work on once they had the PhD or master's degree from US. But that is not the case for us right now. For us, the situation is drastically different. And that's why we can think of, okay, can we go back and make a worthwhile of our master's degree and the experience we had? And the answer in most cases is yes. So that makes another point of why bother so much about this visa issues and why not go back. But at the same time, what are the benefits or what are the pros of like staying in US? I think what a lot of us are facing right now because of the COVID situation is the difficulty to integrate with the culture in US. Because for us, it's the sort of early stages of staying in US. Like PhD, you interact like with your fellow lab mates and professors and the research fellows. To have a sort of fulfilling social life in US, you need to actually be able to integrate with the US culture and people outside just Indians or just Americans, even like Chinese and all the other multicultural sort of environment that US has to offer. If one gets very comfortable in sort of integrating into that culture and they find at home, then obviously the best for them, and they can continue to sort of not find these visa restrictions as a bothering or annoying situation, but rather they would find it, okay, I have my friends which I have created from a master's program, or I am in a good sort of work culture with my colleagues that I'm working with. And if they find it very comfortable to stay here, then very well and good for them. They can sort of continue to work here. But the culture is very different between India and US. And unless someone comes over here in US and experiences that, it will be very difficult for them to sort of decide, okay, I'm definitely going to stay in US once I go. Because I had the idea in my mind that the financial industry in US is much more advanced than India back in the days when I came. And I came here and I sort of currently working. But slowly, these visa issues which you didn't really experience at all in India, you start to experience them, right? And you start to think about, okay, is it really worth it? I have sort of worked for a couple of years in the top-notch financial industry, as you may say, or the Silicon Valley, as you may say. But then you figure out that, okay, India might have almost something like maybe 70% or 60% of that to offer. And you may not want to sort of keep paying the debt of these visa issues. So it's these are the parameters which I think come in, and of course the family, like the constraints, like do you want to stay with your family, or do you want to like have a family over here and continue stay over here? So these are very personal, but some of the generalized approach around like career aspects are something that I have highlighted, and I hope that will help the candidates.
That was such a fantastic, well-rounded answer. Way to go, Nandi. I mean, there's nothing really to add on top of that. Faizan, what should a person do if enrolled for MS in engineering management doesn't have prior work experience? Yeah, Faizan, we kind of already answered that. If you go back to the previous video, we answered. But try keep, from a technical point of view, you can do online courses to build your profile. I think they are more so than ever now also accepted. And I think Vinayak already answered one question in the chat. Thanks for that. So chat, we'll be wrapping up now. If you have any more questions, I'll give like one last opportunity. Shoot your shot, ask whatever you want, but any parting thoughts, anything to sort of summarize, wrap up, anything you feel we missed, now is the time, guys.
I would like to give a parting thought to everyone who is attending that. So one good thing, out of that come out, and I guess everyone can agree with me or share if you don't, is that this experience of moving out of country, living by yourself, especially if you have, say, dietary restrictions, you are a vegetarian, and then if you haven't been outside country ever before, all this entire experience is really uplifting because it gives you that sense of independence, that sense of confidence that you can thrive in any sort of environment given the opportunity. And in that sense, it really builds you as a global citizen. You develop your skill of surviving anywhere. So overall, doesn't matter what program where you choose, what university where you go, what job do you do. All of us can share one thing, that this entire experience of moving to a new country, pursuing studies here, and then working has really given us that sense of confidence that we can flourish anywhere we want, if we want to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think Dave is also clapping his hands virtually. Anybody else? Patel, Vinayak, something to add here?
That was a very well-rounded answer by Vishwas.
Agreed.
Yeah, and on the top of that, I would say that regarding health, please take care of your health. For me personally, I shifted to a very cold place in Indiana. Purdue is in Indiana, so it was a little bit of along with the culture shock, a weather shock, if you can say, for me, because it's snow there is very harsh. So yeah, along with whatever Vishwas said, take care of health too. Like there are a lot of internet resources you can find to, like, for Indians like who go there for the first time, how they can cope up with all this, and it really helped me.
So like I do not have much to add to what people have already said, but one of the things that I want to add for specifically people looking at a PhD program that I think I forgot to add earlier is to make sure that they choose their advisor carefully and not just by looking at the Google Scholar or by looking at the number of citations, because like a lot of professors would hire international students because they know anyone who comes and meets them or like inquires about them like with the students around that lab would not vouch for that lab. But any person who comes from India or from China or from anywhere else who do not have access to like write reviews of the professor would like want students from there. And like international students also feel this, they have this feeling of gratefulness for the professor because they sort of got you there and are paying for you, and they know that American students would not have the same gratefulness, and like they would speak up if they are being harassed or something. And from inside academy, I'm telling you, this is like much more common than you would think. Like international students being treated differently or like being mistreated by professors who are not like good people. Like they might have like really high number of citations, a good name in the field, but they're not good people. And like you'll repent, you'll say, I could have done research in any field, but like I want my 5 years to be worthwhile and not like hell. So please make sure you know who your advisor is, and like make advisor your number one priority when like looking for a research assistant position in a lab or like in a university.
Yeah, no, definitely that's a super pragmatic and realistic sort of a suggestion, and I mean, to be honest, an advice. Thank you, Vinayak. Divyendu, any parting thoughts? Anything to add here?
No, I think everyone summarized it pretty well. Definitely take care of your health, as Harsh mentioned. Take care. Do take care. Think of everything. Like people have summarized, like mentioned a lot of points, mentioned a lot of pros and cons of thinking, of going about thinking all these different factors, like when to leave, when to, if you want to stay, if you want to leave, what to join, if you want to do masters, PhD. In masters, what you want to do, course track or research or thesis. So do think a lot, like do consult your peers, consult your professors. Professors are really helpful in these because they have been through all these different decisions. They have made these decisions before. So do consult your professors, your peers, and your family. Like they are really important for these. So yeah.
So Tushar, let me take this time right before we end to introduce Ashutosh. He just joined us. So I'm not sure if anyone here knows, or I don't know how many of you guys know him, but Ashutosh Ranka is one of my close friends from Jaipur. He went to IIT Kanpur. He was president at IIT Kanpur, which is like general secretary of everything, right? Then he went to work for McKinsey India. From there, he left his job. He worked for the Delhi government for, I think, around 6 months to an year. Now, currently, he's pursuing a master's in public policy from London School of Economics, and he wants to go back to the country to serve for the government. Uh, uh, he's here. He has started a fundraiser to help, hospitals and like in Delhi, and his foundation actually raised around 3 crore right now within like a week. Ashush, correct me if I am wrong. Update me if I don't have the current figures. You're on mute. And I think he has already like planned to buy like 300 concentrators, which I believe they'll be arriving anytime around 5th May to 10th May, right?
Yeah.
So, bro, like this is like they use this platform the way you want. And I just have a couple of questions, but I'll ask them after. If you want to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, let's. I mean, Ranka, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. For the chat, if you go down in the description and the links that we posted for for the donations, the first link is the one which is actually organized by Ashutosh Ranka, so you can see the numbers that we'll give the floor to you in a second. But please go ahead and donate on that platform. I think the first phase was involved with raising money for Delhi, and now your focus is towards UP. So, I mean, I'll give the floor to you to speak about Breathe India.
Yeah. No, thanks, Tushar. Thanks, Saurabh. First of all, I think this has been going on for quite a couple of hours. So I won't take much of your time, but thank you so much for giving me this platform. So as Saurabh said, we started this fundraiser, a bunch of Kanpur alums. The idea was to, do whatever we could in our personal capacities to contribute, help in this situation, because as you guys must have already been following, it's a situation of unprecedented crisis in the country, and at least, like I can tell from my personal experience, it's at least 20x worse than what they are reporting in media. That's the situation for Delhi. Reporting is not happening at all for states like UP and Bihar, right? And this is something from our personal experiences. We know a lot of folks in Delhi and UP, and we know that the situation is really bad. Like you'll not get oxygen, you'll not get ICU beds unless you have connections with the big ministers or the big bureaucrats. So it's an unimaginable situation for people who are in the less privileged sections of the society. So help has poured in from all over the world. A lot of NRIs living across the world have tried contributing their bit, and this is where we also got involved. Since I've already worked in Delhi, happen to know quite a few folks in the government. We first started with Delhi. Five of us, we collaborated with a Delhi-based NGO and started raising funds. At that point, we hadn't thought about much about where would this go. The idea was to just get going, see whatever we can raise, and then buy whatever amount of concentrators we could. Fortunately, the thing blew up quite a bit. We, as Saurabh said, we have been able to raise close to about 3 CRs in last 5 days, and we have closed, I think, 3 or 4 CSRs worth about 5 CRs for Delhi, right? So this gave us hope that maybe people are willing to donate and contribute and do their bit in this situation of crisis. Now we have closed Delhi. In terms of number of concentrators, as Saurabh said, we have already ordered about 250 concentrators, and we have funds about 0.7 CR, which we are now gonna place order any day in any coming day. And the first shipment is expected to arrive starting next week. Up till 10th May, 13th May, we'll have concentrators coming in. Now the support which we have got.
Sorry, interrupting. Where are you getting the concentrators? Is it domestic or internationally sourced?
No, so see, domestic is completely crunched right now, right? It's maxed out. If there is a supplier in India which is giving you a concentrator, probably he or she is just black marketing it. There's no way a supplier in India can provide a concentrator now. It's maxed out in terms of capacities. So all the orders which we have placed so far have come from China. But now what has started happening is that majority of the COVID relief efforts in the country have focused on concentrators, and they're focused on getting supplies from China. So the prices have risen up quite a bit, and the next week China is closed for the entire week. They have some labor holiday week and something of that sort. So we are now struggling with supplies from China. So we are planning to diversify a bit. We are in touch with a few vendors in Europe, in South Korea, and a couple of leads in Indonesia and Singapore. But so far, most of our concentrators have come from China. Yeah. So as I said, I mean, whatever we were able to raise in Delhi has given us hope. It has motivated us to do a bit more, and we have now shifted our focus to UP. We have been working in collaboration with an organization named by the name of Right Walk Foundation. It's a UP based NGO, works with slum communities of 11 districts in UP, and they have been extensively involved with COVID relief efforts in the country since last 20 years. So we have collaborated with them, and the idea is to get as many concentrators, and not just concentrators, other medical equipments which we feel can save lives. Is our focus as we started this campaign yesterday. And we are also starting to venture into other kind of medical kits or things of that sort, because things as simple as paracetamol and Feviflu are not currently accessible to tier 3 towns and villages, right? So a lot of people are succumbing even after having just mild symptoms, because they don't have access to these basic medicines, right? So our focus right now is in terms of medical equipment and medical kits. We started this campaign particularly for UP yesterday, and the idea is to get as much as we can raise, and time is the key, right? Whatever we do has to be done now. Like if concentrators come 1 month from now, makes no sense. They're useless. This wave is gone. So it's a race against time for us. Whatever needs to be done has to be done now. And I mean, so kind of you, Saurabh and Tushar, for allowing me to have this platform. The only request, and I'm sure I think you guys have been there for about a couple of hours already. So the only request, I think Saurabh must have already shared the link of the donation. So if you can share in your groups, I think that would really amplify this a lot. And secondly, if you guys come across companies, know of people in startups or big corporates, whose CSRs we can tap, that would also be a great idea, because as I said already, we did crack a few CSRs in our collaboration in Delhi. So we are quite hopeful that if we can crack CSRs for UP also, that would allow us to get more and more of these concentrators and equipments. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, if you have any questions, happy to clarify. Saurabh, maybe you can also share my contact details in case they come across any good leads. And I'll also maybe share a project brief with you, which you can share with all of them, and just circulate. I mean, obviously, you guys, I would request you guys to also donate in your personal capacities, but just circulate in your groups. You guys must be having all extensive networks. Circulate in your communities, circulate in your friend circles, reach out to your companies, other companies whose CSRs you feel they might be interested in donation. And to be honest, I think not just our fundraiser, right? There are 10 fundraisers going on, as you guys have already shared. So the only idea is to donate in these fundraisers. ऐसा भी नहीं है कि हमें हमारी fundraiser में donate करो. As long as you guys are donating, I'll be more than happy, because ultimately all these concentrators, all the relief efforts are being done for the country, right? तो सारा effort जो भी है वो इधर ही आ रहा है. So as long as you guys can amplify all these fundraising campaigns, that would be super helpful.
Yeah. Thanks, man, for sharing this with us.
Exactly. And I mean, you're sort of thanking us for giving the opportunity. Man,
Yeah.
We are genuinely sort of, I mean, kudos to you for taking such a tremendous initiative and leadership. And you're right, this is such a time-sensitive job. So you really had to move fast. So I mean, all the power to you, man. We'll do anything. I mean, again, on our personal capacity, whatever we can do, but also I request people in the chat or anybody who's even watching this afterwards to please donate. No, I mean, it doesn't have to be any like, I can't donate a big amount. Any small amount is fine, as long as you're donating. Any particular foundation or charity is fine. As Ashutosh said, at the end of the day, we are all sort of combining or consolidating our effort to help our own country. So please, in whatever capacity, and just spread the word, share this. The idea of this particular stream, and Ashutosh, this has been going on for 3.5 hours now, is basically to raise or encourage people to donate. And if we in whatever little bit capacity we could sort of use our time and knowledge or experiences to answer people's questions, and then in order for them to encourage even more, that's what we are doing here. So I mean, thank you so much for even joining us and even spreading the word out there.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah.
I would like to have your contact details. I would like to get in touch with you, Ashutosh, afterwards. Yeah.
Definitely. Saurabh, can you share the contact details?
Yeah, for sure, I'll do that. Okay. Actually, since you are here, Ashutosh, do you have 5 more minutes? I know you're busy, but since we are here and we are catering to a particular audience which is trying to get into universities, right? And you have a very different aim, right? Whatever you are doing. So I would like to ask you this, right? So for the folks who want to serve for the country, right? Who want to join the government, do you think or like, do you know of a lot of people or programs that actually would help them in their career towards serving the country?
And for context, Ashutosh, if you can also give a quick sort of briefer into your background. He's not from IIT Bombay, he's not in the US, so it's kind of an anomaly, or he's an imposter among us. But Ashutosh, I'll yield the floor to you. Please give some context before answering that question.
Yeah, so I think Saurabh already gave the gist of what I have done. But broadly, I mean, just like you guys, I mean, after graduation from Kanpur, I just joined another corporate job, worked with McKinsey for a couple of years. But I think ever since my college days, and especially during my work with Student Union, I think I had this feeling that I have to ultimately get into venture into public space. So this was a feeling which was there since my college time. And although I eventually started working with McKinsey for as a consultant, the feeling stayed. And I think at that point, the idea was to hold on, find the right time when I can venture into public sector, maybe politics, maybe governance. But that always remained like a romantic idea, and I thought that this would happen at some point in time of my life. However, I think one of the turning points was when I did a public sector project in McKinsey. The project was with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The idea was to we were working very closely with the UP government in the space of vaccinations only. And at that point when I started going on the ground, talking to people in the villages and understanding, I realized that the kind of cocoon which we live in, the cocoon of privilege which we live in, and how disconnected it is from 80% of the country. So that's when I decided that okay, let's just take a step back. This is something which I've always wanted to do in my life, and I immediately actually quit McKinsey after that. And I mean, Saurabh told you about Delhi government, but the way it started is that I started working with Atishi Marlena. She was the education advisor of Manish Sisodia, who is the deputy CM of Delhi government. So I started working on her political campaign because the idea was to actually get into politics and not the governance aspect of it, which happened later. So I started working with Atishi in her political campaign. She was contesting for Lok Sabha elections in 2019, and then just things just started happening. Like after Atishi, I worked with MS. I led social media platform for the party. I worked in the state elections. I worked in AK's team, and things just started happening. And then also, obviously, eventually after a point in time when elections were over, the politics of things got over, then I started engaging more with the Delhi government. I was working with the Delhi government COVID task force last year when it all started. Then obviously, I think at a point in time, since all of us have a very, I would say a very particular background, all come from middle class, low middle class, upper class families, go into engineering colleges because that's what our parents teach us ki engineering karo. So I realized that there is a lot of refinement which is needed with respect to this space, right? Because as engineers, things for us are binary. It's either 0 or 1, right? There has to be an objective answer to everything which we look out for in life. But what I realized in when I was working on the ground, that is not how exactly it works in public space. It's not all about black and white. There is a lot of gray space in between, right? So I realized that in terms of my perception or my vision, there was a lot of things which for me to learn. And that's when I decided that okay, let's I have age on my side. I haven't done any other masters or postgraduates. Why not venture? Why not specialize into public policy? And that's when LSE happened, right? I started this masters in public administration last year. I have completed a couple of semesters. So the idea, and I think I'll then try to answer sort of what you had asked. The idea is to eventually after this masters, of course, number one priority has to be getting the education loan off my head, because that is something a big burden for me. And then eventually the idea is to work in public sector space for about 3 to 4 years in Europe, try to fill up my bank account a bit. And then the idea, which might sound a bit wild, a bit dramatic at the first go, is to venture into full-time active politics. So this is what the idea in long term is. By long term, I mean anywhere between 7 to 8 years from now. This is mostly about me. But now coming to sort of your question, I think interestingly, what is happening in India is that this space, the public policy space, has started evolving quite a bit in last few years. And I mean, things started off. There are two aspects to this, right? One is the governance aspect, where you talk about engagement with the governments, and the other is the political aspect, right? When you are talking about political parties, you are talking about political consulting groups, and so on and so forth, right? This is broadly, I would say, the spectrum of things. Now, in terms of governance, again, there can be broad categories, right? You could start with hardcore governments, right? For example, you have Niti Ayogs of the world, right? which it's a hardcore policy think tank body, works for the government of India, makes policies, consults various ministries of the government on these policies, and so on and so forth. Similarly, you have, for example, Delhi Dialogue Commission. It's the Niti Aayog version for the Delhi government, right? So one is definitely the hardcore government, right? When you work directly officially with the governments. Then the second aspect is, I would say all these niche policy think tanks, right? You for example, you have Center of Policy Research, you have CEPR, you have Observer Foundation. So all these I would say policy think tanks who work very closely with the government, but at the end of the day, they are not governments. They are directly consulting the governments, right? And then the third space I would say is these private companies which are not exactly commercial companies, but I would also not keep them not profits, right? So for example, you have all these consulting firms like Samagra Consulting, right, which works very closely again with the government, but all of their projects are mostly in the field of public sector. Then you have Quality Council of India, again, works very extensively with all the state governments, central governments on public sector projects. Then you have Satwa Consulting, and all these organizations which are private organizations but work very closely with the governments, right? Then you start venturing into more niche forms. For example, now you are talking about NGOs, right? Now, there are some bigger NGOs like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have got big philanthropists behind them, or big organizations who are funding these organizations like Dell Square Foundation ho gaya, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation ho gaya, so on and so forth, right? And then there are smaller ones, right? Like for example, Prayas, which is now working on improving educational outcomes of school children, right? And then you have very niche and small ones like the Right Walk Foundation, which we are working now with, right? So these are broadly 4 or 5 categories. Of course, it's a never-ending list. You also have these, the hardcore consulting firms like McKinsey does quite a lot of public sector projects. Delberg Consulting, it's a proper commercial private firm which again does quite a lot of public sector projects, and so on and so forth, right? So even all these corporates, all these private companies have their public policy wing, have their public sector wing through CSRs, through their legal departments, through their policy making department. So that level of engagement also happens. So these are broad 5-6 categories which have started evolving over time. Then you also the most interesting development which has happened in last few years is in forms of fellowships and also degrees of late, right? For example, I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but there's this 1-year course program in the name of Young India Fellowship, which is conducted by Ashoka University, right? Now, Ashoka University started a few years back by a Kanpur alum. It's a liberal arts institution, but this program has become really coveted for someone who is looking to venture into public policy space. Then you have all sorts of fellowships in which you are working very closely with the governments, with the ministers, MLAs. For example, the thing which you mentioned that I worked with the Delhi government. So at that point, I was the associate fellow with the CM office, in which I was working with the Deputy Chief Minister's office. So there are all these fellowships which have evolved quite a bit in last few years. So these are broadly 6, 7, 8 categories. Then obviously the other end of the world is hardcore politics, which I tried experimenting a bit. It's as chaotic as what life can get. Completely opposite spectrum to a typical corporate life. There is no structure, there are no hierarchies, there are no responsibilities. You might get money, you might not get money, you would be thrown out right away, and all those things, right? But then the adrenaline rush which you get when you are working with elections, you're working with all these politicians, is at an altogether different level. But yeah, I mean, I would leave that story for some different conversation. But yeah, these are broad categories.
Got it. Thanks, man. Thanks for explaining and consolidating everything. It seemed like you had a script that you were reading. You were so on point.
I want to be at a stage where I can express so much information in such a crisp and concise manner. So I mean, props to you, Ranka, for doing that. And I think this was not just for our chat or our viewers in general, but even for us. I mean, me personally, this was such a great learning experience, hearing from you and your perspective on so many different things that you talked about. So thank you again. And please, guys, the entire effort of everything or anyone who's here on the stream as well is just to raise as much money as we can for our country. So we just keep on pushing and encouraging you to also do that. Saurabh, you had something to say?
No, so I'll share the details, right, Ashutosh? I'll share your phone number in our group, and also share me the little bit audio.
I'll share.
Yeah, whatever you want, I'll pass that on, right?
Yeah,
and
we'll make sure to pass that on to the crowd as well.
Definitely.
Yes.
That will be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All
right,
guys. I think wrap up, Saurabh, and anything else before we do that?
No, just have a good weekend, I guess.
Yeah.
What else?
But no, I again express my thank you to all of the panelists. So thank you so much for. I mean, I think we went a little too further than what I had even thought of. But I think it eventually it helps in the longer run for a lot of the crowd that who would be watching even later on, because we had really extensive discussions and had really thoughtful advices. And I think Vinayak is out of the panel now, but he shared a couple of pragmatic advices similarly for Dev, Vishwas. So I mean, we had a very well-rounded sort of discussion. I, even being a part of the panel, learned a lot of things. So I'm sure, and I've seen a lot of people thanking us in the chat or even on the WhatsApp group. So I think this was such a tremendous opportunity for them. So I mean, thank you, and props to everybody who joined. I mean, Deva, Jyoti, Nandi, I'm reading through the list here because we had so many people. I mean, Vinayak, obviously, Vishwas, Divyendu Mondal, still here. Bora, I think he left. Harsh Patel. So thank you again so much for joining. Shreyas Chavan, he left. And again, Saurabh, thank you so much for co-hosting with me. I think this was a very impromptu sort of a decision, but nothing to really think or ponder upon. That we gotta do this. We just got inspiration from some other people doing that.
It's a very simple thing, right? We have so much in common, right? And we always discuss all these things so much with each other, right? It's just about getting that voice to the people out there so that, you know, everyone can benefit as we started, right? As we started this stream. So.
And thanks a lot to you guys for, you know, organizing it. It's just our way of contributing back a bit, both in terms of sharing our experiences and simultaneously encouraging people to contribute to the ongoing crisis, you know, to help people who are facing the crisis in India. Our country desperately needs our help. So thanks a lot for, you know, organizing a channel through which at least we can contribute something. So,
yeah, I would like to also thank you guys. Thank the host for doing this, and for viewers in India, just stay safe, wear masks, and I hope you guys are like in good spirits among all of this stuff happening in India.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely scary times. We are going through a crisis. So, I mean, our wishes to all of you or anybody of you who's watching, stay safe, be responsible, take appropriate actions to secure yourself, your family, your friends as much as you can. I think this is definitely not the time to let our guards down. We need to be strong and concrete internally in order to persevere through however long this crisis goes. And every donation, even as simple as 10 rupees would definitely go help into the bigger pool of you know, the donations that we are trying to encourage you to give.
Yeah, and just before ending, just want to put it out there. Feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
If you have any follow-up questions, if we can answer them, we'll do that. If we cannot, then we'll refer you to someone who is more apt, you know, to answer that particular question. So we'll do whatever we can in our capacity to, you know, give you the right information. So yeah, that's that.
Nandi, you had something to say?
No, I would like to thank you both like for this great initiative, and I'm very happy to be part of it. And I'd like to echo the concept that it's not the time to let our guards down. We have to be responsible citizens, and we'll definitely go through this and we'll come out strong out of it. But I think this ambition of like taking up challenges is among all of us who wants to sort of pursue masters, PhD in a different foreign country, and take this COVID as a separate challenge itself and fight through it. All the best.
All right.
Very, very rightly said. DV? you
Yeah,
have something?
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for hosting this. Thank you everyone else for watching and listening to us.
Mhm.
And stay safe. Yeah, stay safe.
Thank you for joining. I think I forgot to thank Utsav Vasak. So if he's still watching, please don't get pissed at me. But again, I think this is the time we wrap it up. So again, thank you so much. Stay safe.